Good afternoon. Welcome to another JPR live session where we get to have intimate conversations and one-of-a-kind in-studio performances with artists we admire. This JPR live session is made possible with support from the Talent Club in Talent, Oregon, with live music and cold drinks in a casual atmosphere. Find more information and their live music schedule at talentclublive.com. Today, our guest is a singer-songwriter, Steve Poltz. He's back in the tour saddle after a pandemic pause, and his album from 2022 is Stardust and Satellites. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you for having me in here this afternoon.
Yeah, you're on a West Coast tour. Where are you calling home these days?
Nashville, Tennessee, yeah. I've been there the last 8 years.
And prior to the pandemic, you had kind of an intense tour schedule. We read that you were on the road sometimes up to 300 days a year. What was that lifestyle like? How did you?
Being on the road or being off the road?
Job being on the road.
Oh, being on the road. It's sort of been my natural habitat since the 80s when I was in the rug burns. So I'm like a kennel dog. You put me on a plane or in a van or anything, and I just completely feel at home when everything's moving and I'm getting to a show. So I always feel like I have to get to a show. And then when you take that all away, it can become like an episode of The Shining.
Well, that was, the pandemic put you on hold, and you got to work recording a new album. It's produced by Oliver Wood and Jano, who were here just about a week and a half ago. And it seems like you were kind of tapping into that musical clique you guys have, along with Jano and Oliver and some other folks we keep running into. Tell us about that.
It's pretty crazy. I moved to Nashville 8 years ago, and for some reason, man, the moment I moved there, everything just started. I ran into people every day. It was kind of like, have you ever been to Folk Alliance or Americana Fest?
I haven't, but
or South by Southwest.
I can kind of imagine.
So it's like South by Southwest or Americana Fest or Folk Alliance, meaning wherever you go, you just go to get a coffee at any of the coffee shops, especially in East Nashville, and you're going to run into people like you're at some music conference. And so then you're just constantly around people who are creating, and they're doing it at the level that you're doing it at. Even the Uber driver's doing it at a level that, like, shredding on guitar, or your server at a restaurant that night, she might be Molly Tuttle, the next Molly Tuttle or something. Right. And, like, I met Molly Tuttle, for example, at a place called Moss Tacos, this great little taco place in East Nashville where a lot of musicians hang out, and she just happened to be in there, and we just started talking, and next thing she said, hey, we should write a song. I said, how about tomorrow? And that's what happens, and it's really cool. Like, I lived in San Diego for years, and in San Diego we'd say, hey, let's go surfing. And in Nashville, you're surfing for songs, and I love it because where I live, I have a writing room, and Vince Herman just was over the other day from Leftover Salmon, and we wrote 2 songs, and then we had so much fun. I said, let's go back to your house and write another one and get some Cajun food, so we did. And it keeps, I'm talking on and on and on, where people call up, and they say, hey, I want to write a song with you, and I'm always wanting to say yes if I'm at home.
That was actually the question we had. How does that work out? Do people just call you up and say, hey, Steve, let's do a song together, or vice versa? And apparently that's kind of it, isn't it?
Yeah, like, here's an example. Another example is I was going to be going on this cruise ship called Kayamo, and it's a musical cruise ship. It's a floating festival that goes on for like 7 days. And I was getting ready to leave. I had 3 weeks till I was leaving, and my phone rang, and it was Jim Lauderdale. And he goes, hey, man, we're both going to be on the boat, and we've never written a song together. You mind if I come over tomorrow and we write one? I said, sure. So Lauderdale comes over, and it's always funny when he comes over because he's such a crack up to hang out with. And he'll always act like he's talking to a political dignitary. So there'll be a knock at the door, and I go to the door. He knocks again, and I open it up, and then he doesn't have his phone to his ear, but once I open the phone, he puts his hand up like somebody would be holding a stop, like stopping you from running home at third base, and then he pulls his phone, and he goes, hey, hang on, I got something, hang on, and he goes, Yes, and it's always a different politician. So recently he goes, "Hey, yes, Governor DeSantis. Yes, no, I understand, Governor. Yes, listen, I'm over at some hippie's house right now. Listen, we could meet up next week. Not at Mar-a-Lago though, because that would be awkward. Okay, Governor. Yes, God bless you too." And then he makes a big deal, like he's hanging up, like way over exaggerated. Then he puts his phone away. He goes, "Hey, I'm sorry. They're always calling me." And then he sits down and he goes, "What do you want to write about?" And I'll say, "I don't know, let's write about the piece of carpet in my garage." And he'll go, "Hey, that sounds like a good idea." And then I'll start playing a piece on guitar, and he always has to go pee when he gets to my house. And then he goes, "Hey, I have to go take a wiki leak. I'll be right back." And then while he's peeing, I'll be playing some instrumental thing, and he'll come out, "I got an idea." And so it's just on and on. Now we've written 22 songs.
Wow.
It's insane.
He has something recent that came out too.
He's always got a new record out.
He sure does. Well, how about starting off with a song? What do you want to play?
Oh man, I would love to play a song for you. Nothing makes me happier than to play a song for you. And I think what I'll do is I'll do a song since why not? Why not do a song that's off of my latest release?
Hey, wow.
How does that sound
that's
to you?
novel.
Is that a good thing to do?
Yeah, that's a cool thing to do.
Usually I don't do that, and I'll put out a record and I go play a show and I won't even do one song off the record because I have like 1,000 songs. But I want to do this song because this song, I was getting ready to go play Telluride Bluegrass Festival. And my friend Anthony DaCosta came over to my house, and we were writing songs for a record of his. And I said, "Dude, we got to write one for me because in about a week I'm playing Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and I want to have an opening song because there'll be 5,000 people on. I play solo all the time on stage." I said, "And I want to have an opening song. Let's manifest a song." So we looked each other in the eyes and we put our hands on each other's temples, and we said, "We are going to write a song for Steve Poltz to have as his first song at Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and we're going to make it happen." So we manifested it. And sure enough, we sat down, and this is a song we wrote. You're about to watch a show starring me. I don't know what you're about to hear or see. The truth is I have no plan at all. There's a good chance that off this stage I'll fall. My body ain't quite what it used to be. My hair ain't the color it once was. My style icon is Emmylou Harris, mixed with a little Don Was. By the way, Don Was heard that on Outlaw Country, and he called me up and he said, "Nobody's ever name-checked me in a song. I lie on stage, I lie on songs, I lay my troubles down. Hey, stick it out with me, kid, I mean, what else is there to do in this godforsaken, deep-fried bacon town?" Yeah, you bought the tickets, you paid the cash, you got in the car, you moved your ass. You brought a friend or an awkward date to something you love that they're probably gonna hate. It's music, sweet music. I'm emo, I'm screamo, I'm country, and I'm folk Americana. If you wanna, I'm old-fashioned, but I'm woke. I'm everything to everyone, I'm Jesus, and I'm Buddha too. Don't panic, I'm organic, too scared to be satanic. But mostly I'm just here to sing for you. Well, I played a lot of shows across this town, but tonight's the best I'll ever play. I'm handing you a pearl. My G-string might snap in two. My face might turn from red to white to blue. But it's not because I'm dying, hey, I'm just patriotic. Where we all connect like Legos, yeah, we all are symbiotic. I die on stage, I die in songs, I try to work it out. They stick it out with me, kid, I mean, what else is there to do in this craft beer making, earthquake shaking town? Yeah, you bought the tickets, you paid the cash, you got in the car, you moved your ass. You brought a friend or an awkward date to something you love that they're definitely gonna hate. It's music, sweet music. I'm emo, I'm screamo, I'm Grateful Dead, post-stroke Americana. If you wanna, I'm old-fashioned, but I'm broke. I'm everything to everyone, I'm Jesus and I'm Buddha too. Don't panic, I'm organic, too scared to be satanic. But mostly I'm just here to sing for you. Well, I know what you're thinking, what the hell? This guy just wrote a whole entire song about himself. And the truth is, I do it all the time. But for me, it's therapeutic, and I hope that you don't mind. Well, I probably owe you money, 'cause you're my therapist. I'm kinda like your escort away from all of this. I cry on stage, I cry in songs, I throw my troubles down. Hey, stick it out with me, kid, I mean, what else is there to do? And this hemp clothes making, tincture taking, sourdough baking, late day waking, spare change taking, traffic making, release the kraken. I must be mistaken, I'm in the wrong town.
That's delightful. It is Steve Poltz. He's my guest today in a JPR live session. What's the name of that song?
That's called Wrong Town.
Wrong Town. That comes from his most recent release, Stardust and Satellites. Why don't you tell us about making that record? I know it was a pandemic thing that you were doing.
Yeah, so Chris Wood was my neighbor, and Chris, for those of you out there that are listening, Chris Wood has been in a band for years called Medeski, Martin, and Wood, and he is one of my favorite bass players ever, as well as Don was. We can't forget him. And so Chris Wood and his then girlfriend, who's now his wife, had this big garden, this organic garden. He's an organic gardener. He's got the green thumb. And so he's my neighbor, and we would always hang out and talk and go on walks, me and Chris and Laura and my wife Sharon. So we'd go on these walks, and they closed the golf course down that we lived by, which was amazing because the golf course became like Central Park in East Nashville. And so there'd be dogs, frisbees, everybody's hanging out. And so I would go on walks every morning with Chris Wood, and we'd talk about stuff. And then Oliver Wood started coming over because he needed a haircut, and my wife cuts hair really well, and so she would cut Oliver's hair, and then they'd bring over food, and then Oliver, it was kind of like a drug dealer on a playground. Oliver goes, "Hey man, why don't you come over to the studio? Let me and Jano record one song. The first one's free, bro." So I go over to his studio, and I record one song. And Jano's playing on it. By now, Chris Wood had moved up to Canada, and so we didn't get him to play bass, but we got Jano to play drums and keyboard at the same time, and Oliver to play guitar. And we recorded a song, and I was just blown away. And they have this really cool studio in Nashville. It's called The Studio. And so we recorded that, and then I just kept going back every day. I really got hooked on the drugs he was selling me, and we ended up making this record during the pandemic, towards the end of the pandemic, right. And it was perfect timing and the pandemic, as we alluded to earlier, I've been a road dog since the 80s, and so everybody was worried about me, like, Steve's going to go crazy. But the weird thing is I just chilled out and baked bread and went on walks and wrote songs. And I'm kind of like every day, whatever the situation is, I'm kind of happy whatever I'm doing. So I was lucky enough to, have that gene that's similar to how my dad's was.
Uh-huh. So you also worked on, we recently had Imogen Clark in here. You wrote a song with her. Tell us about Squinters.
So Imogen Clark is this great artist, and she's from Sydney, Australia. Just a beautiful soul. Just one of those people that's a natural songwriter and a great singer. And her manager is a guy named Jeremy Dillon, who also manages my friend Jim Lauderdale. And Jeremy Dillon also puts on this country music festival in Nashville called CMC Rocks. CMC used to stand for Country Music Channel in Nashville. And so he's grown up amongst all these huge country acts, like he knows Keith Urban and all these people. And so he loves Jim Lauderdale, and he'll fly him over to do tours and then put a band together. And he discovered Imogen Clark, and they came out to Nashville to write songs. And Jeremy reached out to me and asked if I would want to write a song with Imogen. So she came over, and it was just a natural fit. And we wrote the coolest song called Squinters. And what I like about the song is I like it when somebody in Nashville, when you do a co-write with somebody, they might have an idea or you might have an idea. And the polite thing, if you're not into their idea, this is what you say. They play an idea for you, and then you listen to it or they listen to it. And if you're not into it, you go, what else you got? Which you can also use with your lover after a nice steamy night or morning. After it's over, you can say, what else you got? And so I just sat and Imogen had this idea. I said, what's your idea? And she said, well, people that live in the suburbs outside of Sydney, when they're driving home, it's always as the sun's setting, and we call them squinters because they're squinting into the sun on their way home. And I said, that's our song title right there, Squinters. We've got to do it. And we immediately wrote that song. It came to us really pretty quickly.
It's one of my favorites on her record.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good one. And you were born in Halifax, and then you guys moved to the Southern California area. And so I read that you met Elvis and Liberace.
Yeah,
How did
so
that happen?
I was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And once again, for those of you folks out there listening, Halifax, Nova Scotia is way above Maine. And it's so far east, it's not 3 hours time difference, it's 4 hours. It's the Atlantic time zone. And then if you go over to Newfoundland, that's even a half hour later. They couldn't be bothered to change it a full hour. So like from Oregon to, if it's 8 a.m. in Oregon, it's 9, 10, 11, 12. It's noon already in Halifax, and it's 12:30 in Newfoundland. And so I was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, to the Sisters of Charity in the infirmary. And my dad was in the Royal Canadian Air Force. And then one day we were snowed in, and I was just a little tot, and he decided we're going to move somewhere warm, and we went to Southern California.
That's the opposite of...
Yeah. And we moved to Pasadena, California, and then Palm Springs, California. And so when we lived in Palm Springs, California, all the movie stars had homes there, like Elvis Presley and Bob Hope and Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and Liberace. And so you'd kind of get to know where they lived. And the guy who lived across the street from us was the guy that ran the Palm Springs airport. And it was 1969, and it was Elvis's comeback year, his comeback special. And he was dressed in black leather with that perfect pompadour and the pork chop sideburns. And so we got a call one day, and it was the guy who lived across the street who ran the airport. And he knew I was a huge Elvis fan. I was 9 years old in 1969, and my sister was older. And he said, Steve, Kathy, Elvis is flying in today at 3 p.m. on a private plane, and you guys could meet him if you would like. And it was like 115 degrees outside, and he let us ride our bikes on the tarmac at the airport, obviously pre-9/11.
Right.
And so you could see the plane coming down. It was a private jet, and you could hear the engines, and you heard the squeak of the tires as the plane landed, and then plane goes to a stop, out come down the steps, and out walks Elvis Presley, larger than life. And I ran towards him as a 9-year-old kid, and I just jumped at him, and he picked me up in the air and spun me around, and he put me on his shoulders, took off my little hat I was wearing, I had a ball cap on, tousled my hair, and then he hugged my sister for a long time, and I said to him, it's okay, Elvis, you could have her. And he started laughing, and he gave me his autograph. He gave my sister his autograph, and he just sat there talking to us. This is the thing about Elvis Presley.
Right.
He just wanted to talk to people. Like, he loved his fans. So he's standing on this hot runway talking to us, giving us his autograph, doesn't want to leave. And finally, one of his assistants comes up and goes, come on, boss, we got to go. And he gets back in the limo, and rather than roll up the window, he leaves it down and sticks his head out, and he's waving to us all the way till the limousine just like disappeared in a mirage. Wow. And that night I went home and practiced my guitar for hours.
I was going to say, did that make you want to be a career musician at that point?
I already wanted to. I was already a lifer at the age of 6 when I first went to see Julian Bream play classical guitar at the Hollywood Bowl. But after meeting Elvis, it cemented it, and that was all I wanted to do.
Well, that's super cool. How about another song? What do you want to play?
Oh, man, I would love to play another song. That's a really good idea. I think me playing another song is probably a smart thing to do. So this is a song I wrote. This is on the latest record, Stardust and Satellites. I wrote this song for my dad right after he passed away, and it was around Thanksgiving. And And this is called conveyor belt. And my dad used to, when he would cough, he'd go, Bahootensie. And I never knew what Bahootensie meant. And he was about to die. He was on his deathbed. And I go, Dad, you've said Bahootensie my whole life. How do you spell it? And he goes, Bahootenzie. And I go, what language is it? And he goes, I made it up. And I said, what's it mean? And he goes, I don't know. I just like the way it sounds. And I go, well, give me something about what it means. He said, Bahootensie. It means many blessings. Let's go nuts. And so I was glad he told me that before he passed away. And I asked him, I said, Dad, I know you're dying. I was holding his hand, as he was dying. I got to be there. And I go, Dad, if there's anything on the other side, leave me a message. And he goes, I'll do that. What do you want it to be? And I said, Indian Joe, because he had a poem he wrote called Indian Joe. And there was no message from Indian Joe anywhere. And I thought it was like what John Prine said. When you're dead, his dad told him, when you're dead, you're a dead peckerhead. But sure enough, a friend of mine texted me a photograph of an old article of my band, the Rugburns, when we played a show with Green Day. And he didn't know anything about my dad's poem. Next to it was an article, and this was from the 90s. And the article said, Indian Joe traveling the world with acoustic guitar.
Wow.
But he was sending me a picture of a poster of mine. He didn't know.
Yeah.
So this is called Conveyor Belt. We are all on a conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday, we were in our prime. Mic-mac, click-clack, don't even think about looking back. Kodak, soundtrack, I remember when my ma had a heart attack. We are all on a conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday, we were in our prime. Tick-tack, tic-tac-toe. Hey, I'm still looking for Indian Joe. Where the hell did my dad go? Maybe where the river and the rainbow flow. Yeah, maybe where the river and the rainbow go. Yakety-yak at the top of the tree. My love's got a money-back guarantee. I'm living now in Tennessee, but I still scream Bahootensie. Hey, let's go join the Jubilee. Don't let the time run out on me. My mom and dad have gone to sea. We're all on a conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday, we were in our prime. We are all on a conveyor belt in a factory on the wheel of time. Yeah, we don't know when our card clock's out. It was yesterday, we were in our prime. Seems like yesterday, we were in our prime.
That is Steve Poltz in a JPR live session with the Conveyor Belt. That's from his most recent release called Stardust and Satellites. And what a touching song.
Thanks, man.
So, in addition to losing your dad just not too long ago, your mom preceded him by a few years, and you were the caregiver. How did that end up affecting you?
Well, I was the caregiver for both of them, and they both went fast. It was wild. My mom and dad were very active. My dad wrote poems all the time. My mom played piano, played guitar. She was an English teacher, very strict Catholic woman, and my dad was really funny. And so my mom died first, but it was wild because they sort of predicted it. And I remember we were in my dad's Lexus. I went back to visit him in Palm Springs. And you know how it's weird? You become like this 8-year-old kid again, no matter how old you are when you're with your parents. And I was in the back seat. So here, I'll paint the picture for you. My dad had this gold Lexus that was banged up because his eyesight was going, he was always crashing into stuff. The interior was torn apart and rotting because it's so hot in Palm Springs. And my dad's driving down the road, and my mom says, "Oh, Stephen, I'm ready to go. I can't see well anymore, and I like to read. And your father, he's getting old." My dad goes, "We're both ready to go." And I go, "Well, no, I don't want you guys to die." My dad goes, "But we're ready to die." And he looks back at me while he's driving. The car starts swerving into head-on traffic. And I go, "Well, I'm not." And I had to grab the wheel. And so my mom died shortly after that, and I got to be with her as well. Mm-hmm. And then that's why the pandemic was kind of a weird blessing, because my mom died, and then during the pandemic, my dad was in this independent living facility, and they weren't allowed to hang out with each other because it was the pandemic, and my dad was 90 years old. And so I would go up, and they would let me take him to leave the place where he lived. And I went back to San Diego, and that's where my dad had moved to. And so he's living in this place. The pandemic's happening. I leave Nashville for the summer and rent a place in San Diego so I can be near my dad. And I would go have lunch with him every other day. And I go, "Dad, bring a couple girls. We'll have a double date." And he would get like 2 90-year-old women, or maybe one was 94. And we'd go out, the 4 of us, and we'd go out to lunch at a place. Every other day I'd buy him lunch. And it was so the pandemic for me in one way was kind of a bit of a blessing, because I got to spend so much time with my dad and listen to stories that I didn't know, as we'd get older and my mom was gone. He was able to tell me some of the more ribald and racy stories of their life. And it was really cool to get to know him.
Well, that's pretty cool. On a little more fun note, you've been performing live for decades, countless shows, and you tell each audience that this is the best show ever. But tell us a little about that, the sort of the never-ending positivity there. It's kind of a little SpongeBob SquarePants almost.
Well, I don't even know how this happened, but I would be playing a show, and I would look at the audience at some point in the show and go, "This is the greatest show I've ever played." And people love this because they want to be at the greatest show you've ever played. And while I was playing it, I meant it. Like I wasn't even being facetious. Right. And then the next night I'd say it at a different time, and then the audience started getting used to hearing it, and they cheer so loud if I say it during the show that one time I walked out and it was like 600 fans of mine at the Belly up in San Diego. Before I played a note, I said, "This is the greatest show I've ever played." And people were laughing so hard. So I was at this festival in Australia called Port Fairy Folk Festival. Great, really cool folk festival. Been there for years. The Port Fairy Folk Festival. It's about 2 hours outside of Melbourne, Australia, in Victoria. And so I'm playing the show, right? And Steve Earle. So Steve Earle's talking to me the whole time. Like, he comes into my backstage room and he's talking to me about the Yankees, because I don't like the Yankees because I'm a Padres fan. The Yankees beat the Padres in the World Series back in 1998. But the whole time Steve Earle's talking to me about his Yankees, and I'm getting ready to go on in front of 6,000 people on this main stage. And Steve Earle can talk, and he talks to me the whole way up the stage to where I get on the stage. I thought he was going to come on stage with me. And I told the audience, Steve Earle wouldn't leave my dressing room and kept talking about the Yankees. And the audience in Australia knows nothing about baseball. And I started saying to the audience, "You know why I hate the Yankees? They're in the American League." Because back then the American League was the only league that had the DH, which is a designated hitter rule. Now it's gone to both leagues. And I started talking about how I can't stand the Yankees and I can't stand any American League teams because they do the DH and these pitchers need to be able to bat because it's more like a chess game when they're making the moves and the managers. And I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm talking all about it, and Steve rolls side stage laughing. And so, anyways, I'm on stage, and in the middle of my show, I go, "This is the greatest show I've ever played." The audience goes nuts. And then 2 nights later, I'm back in Melbourne, Australia, playing a show at a place there, and it's called the Spotted Mallard. It's now a defunct club. Most of the clubs I play have gone bankrupt. And so when I'm on stage and I'm playing that night, and there's like 350 people, it's sold out. It's a tiny little club. And in the middle of the show, I go, "This is the greatest show I've ever played." So afterwards, I'm signing vinyl records and T-shirts and posing for pictures of people. And this guy's there in line. He's got a little kid with him who's like 6 years old. And the dad goes, "Hey, we have a question for you. My son's kind of bummed. He just saw you at Port Fairy Folk Festival, and you said it was the greatest show you ever played. And then tonight, in the middle of the show, when you said, 'This is the greatest show I've ever played,' he goes, 'My son looked at me and said, "But Dad, I thought we saw the greatest show." It was like seeing Santa Claus wasn't real. So I had to look at the kid and I said, "No, every show I play is the greatest show I've ever played. And that's how you need to wake up in the morning. Right when you open your eyes. Are you listening to me?" And he goes, "Yes." I go, "Promise me you're listening to me." And the 6-year-old kid goes, "I am." And I put my hands on his temples and I go, "Promise me every morning when you wake up, right when you open your eyes, you're going to say, 'This is the greatest day I'll ever have.'" And then you'll believe it because it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. And the kid was so happy he gave me a hug. So I felt like my work is done here.
That's so cool. And you've mentioned playing at several festivals, including the Cayamo Cruise. You've done Jam Cruise and Telluride and the Sierra Music, the High Sierra in California. And all
I just came from High Sierra.
Yeah, that's
Music
right.
Fest.
That was over last weekend or so. And on Cayamo, you got married.
I did,
correct?
yeah.
Tell us about that.
So, in fact, I'm getting ready to go play Newport Folk Festival coming up. That's going to be, I think, next month. But so Cayamo.
All right.
I was going to get married when I came back off of the cruise because my wife's parents both died. My parents both died. And what we noticed was we couldn't get in to see if you're not family. I mean, this sounds so not romantic. And we looked at each other and said, "Man, we got to button everything up. We've been together a long time. We need to make this a partnership." And I said, "Well, yeah." And so she said, "We should get married when we get back off of Cayamo," because we were both paranoid one of us would die then, because I was with both her parents too. And so we got onto Cayamo, and then I said to the guys that run Cayamo, I said, "Hey, listen, when I get off the ship, we're going to be going home and getting married, so I want to see what time we dock because I'm making an appointment at the Justice of the Peace in Nashville." And then they went, "Whoa, whoa, 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 way to bury the lead, dude. We can do the wedding on the boat." And I go, "What do you mean you can do the wedding on the boat?" They go, "We're Cayamo. We have venue changes all the time. We'll have it in the atrium lounge." Well, I'm thinking there might be 60 people there. And I brought my dad on Cayamo because my mom had died. So my dad's there. And then at the wedding, it turns out there's 1,500 people. Wow. It was a free wedding for 1,500 people because Cayamo supplied all the cake and champagne. And at my wedding was Brian Wilson because he was playing there that day of the Beach Boys. And Brian Wilson is sitting next to Al Jardine. And my dad's next to Al Jardine. And then we had Sean and Sarah Watkins play our song at the wedding, and Molly Tuttle play a song at the wedding.
Wow.
So Sean and Sarah Watkins from Nickel Creek and the Watkins Family Hour. Yeah. And then Molly Tuttle played a song. And then these girls played the wedding march called the Quibby Sisters, who are amazing bluegrass girls. So they played, and the wedding was huge. And you couldn't have, and we planned it like, they pulled it off with like 2 days notice because it was like, you can come or you can't come, whatever you want. Anybody's allowed to attend. Right. And my dad got to see it.
Oh, cool.
So it was really cool. And nobody had to bring a gift. We got no gifts, which we didn't want. We didn't care about that. Right. The gift was all these people were at the wedding. So it was really cool.
That's a great story, man. Well, why don't you wrap up with another tune? What do you want to wrap up with?
Oh, cool. This is a song I wrote with my friend Billy Strings, and this is on his record, Renewal, Billy's record, Renewal. He texted me these lyrics, and he goes, hey, I just crapped these lyrics out with a picture of them. And he goes, can you put some music to it? And I didn't have to change much, and he didn't change anything of the music I wrote. It was like those old school days where, you know, like Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice and stuff. You know how like one person would do the lyrics and one would do the music.
Wow,
so
nice.
This is called Leaders. We're not the leaders anymore. All our believers washed ashore. We've got to find another door. We're not the leaders anymore. Where are the children left to play? Let Mother Nature lead the way. We're gonna need her love someday. Where are the children left to play? We're not the leaders anymore. All our believers washed ashore. We've got to find another door. We're not the leaders anymore. We stand up straight and suck our thumbs. These politicians seem so dumb. Makes my fingers tingle numb. We stand up straight and suck our thumbs. There should have been some other way for us to thrive and have our say, without just throwing it away. There should have been some other way. We're not the leaders anymore. All our believers washed ashore. We've got to find another door. We're not the leaders anymore.
That is Steve Poltz in a JPR live session with a song he wrote with Billy Strings. Leaders is the tune. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Steve.
Man, this was great. This is the greatest radio interview I've ever done in my life.
Mine too.
Good.
You can find out more about Steve Poltz and his music, merch, all that kind of stuff at poltz.com, poltz.com. This live session was engineered by John Griffin with research and assistance from Danielle Kelly, made possible with support from the Talent Club in Talent, Oregon, with cold drinks and live music in a casual atmosphere. Find more information about them at talentclublive.com. I'm Dave Jackson. Thanks for listening to JPR Live Sessions.
Don't we all want to strive to be Talent Club Live? Don't we all want to strive? Take a dive to the Talent Club Live. They got everything you need. They've got gold bars for free. They'll give you a Prius 2. They'll give you a Tesla 3. They'll give you a rocket ship. They'll take you on a trip. Talent Club Live, Talent Club Live. Does not cause itching or swelling.
Thanks so much, Steve.